All right. Oh, well, good evening. A little late getting started. Sorry. We got a few issues here going on at my house. We got some sort of a water leak out of my house. I'm not sure what's going on with that. That's kind of strange. Um, so we were kind of dealing with that today. Fun, fun, fun. So let's see. Got I've got a few questions here. Let's see if I can dig them up. Hmm. All right. Still don't have using my upright arm in a sling. Um, Hi, Rich. My shoulder is getting better. I still can't do a whole lot with it. It's in a sling. It's been 4 weeks since my surgery. The doctor basically didn't want me to do anything for about 6 weeks. Um, so I, take it off every once in a while. Take a shower. Like today, I actually took a shower and stuff. And um, don't really, don't really want to do a whole lot with it. I still can't move it in lots of different directions. I can move it a little bit, but um, basically he suggested about 6 months of no bowling. So I got another 5 months for that. So thanks, Andrew. I do feel better. It's just a matter of what you know. It's just going to be a process. So I got a couple more weeks probably before I even start doing some physical therapy. So let's see. Bowling with you back in Long Island at BVL Open in Farmingdale. Oh, okay. A few years ago. That house to me had the toughest carry that I've seen at most bowling centers. I think I had one good tournament there. I think it was because I had one game that they'll, got a lot of strikes on. Other than that, it was a real struggle for me to strike at that house. Are you coming back to Charleston, West Virginia next month? No. I'm. I had shoulder surgery 4 weeks ago today, and my doctor said no bowling for 6 months. So um, I'm in a sling here, and so I don't plan to be bowling at least for the next 4 or 5 months. So let's see if I can dig up some of these other questions that I had. Let's see. Okay. Well, thank you for getting a chance to bowl with me. Hope you had fun at that. Like the bowl tournaments. It's a little far away, but Charlie told me to, sponsor the tournament, help take care of me. I was in the area doing. I think I was down in Virginia bowling some other tournaments and stuff, and it was just kind of made, worked out perfect for me to do that. Is there a way to get a retired ball? Sorry, um, Brunswick doesn't like me to give away bowling balls like that. They are okay with me donating to raffles or fundraisers or whatever, but to personally sell them or whatever, give them away to somebody personal, they're not really crazy about that. How are your day? You bowling against my brother Dave Johnson? Yeah, Dave bowls on the senior tour, so he's a very good bowler. Obviously, won a won the tournament a few years ago at Bill Moore's house. Um, how long before you can bowl again? Doctor says another 5 months. I had my surgery 4 weeks ago today. Okay, let's see. Trying to dig up some of these questions here. Okay, that's kind of weird. Excuse me. You're the youngest brother. How many brothers do you have? Okay. Let's see. Looking for a 2-3. Any ideas? But probably best to do it on a search and maybe find an old Brunswick or a group chat or whatever that does old bowling balls or something like that. Hi, Jim. What are you doing while you can't bowl? I'm watching a lot of TV. My wife has also gotten into doing Legos, so she bought this Milky Way Galaxy Lego, so I've been helping her put that together. So let's see. All right, here we go. All right. So these are some people that asked questions earlier. Let's see. All right, let's see. Have you ever tried rolling a ball left-handed? I have. I can throw a ball left-handed. I'm not great at it. I have the fundamentals down. I've never really bowled for score. I think I bowled for score one game in my life. When I had a ball like roll off of a chair and I tried to stop it and it bounced back up and kind of smashed my finger. It wasn't horrible, but it just didn't. This is a long time. I think this might have been before I was even on tour. And I think I actually bowled the last game left-handed. It's the only game I think I've ever bowled for score left-handed. I have the fundamentals down. I throw shots every once in a while left-handed, but very, very seldom. I don't have a ball that's drilled for me left-handed. Since I had the shoulder surgery, I actually was thinking about maybe bowling left-handed because doctor doesn't want me to bowl for 6 months. He said nothing left-handed for about 2 months. So I'm like, well, that gives me about 4 months of bowling left-handed if I really wanted to. So I think I'm probably going to drill a ball left-handed. I actually got some bowling shoes, that I can maybe slide with. Because when I bowl left-handed right now, I use my normal bowling shoes and I don't slide with my right foot, or I can't slide with my right shoe. So I'd rather slide. I don't know. I'll worry about that when I get to that situation. But I will probably try to bowl a little bit left-handed. I can pitch horseshoes pretty decent left-handed. So let's see. Are you pitching in the World this year in Utah, my friend? No, I am not. I had signed up, but when I got my surgery, I was kind of hopeful that I'd be able to pitch left-handed. Knowing that even my right arm was obviously not going to be being able to do anything, but my doctor suggested that's not a good idea, so I dropped out of the tournament, and I'm not going to play. Have you ever thought about switching to a different brand of horseshoe other than your heavy Clydesdale Deadeye shoes? No, I like those horseshoes, and I will probably continue to use them. Haven't seen you doing horseshoes lately. Do you still video your playing? I always enjoyed watching. Are you bowling much these days? Still would love for you to come to Fort Meade Lanes, Maryland. Got a PBA East Senior with Russ Mills later this year. Well, thank you. Yes, I do. I haven't done anything in the last 4 weeks because I had shoulder surgery. So I'm, and I still do horseshoes. I've got the videos. But in the last month, I've had a couple that I did from before I was had my surgery, but haven't posted any videos really of recent because I haven't done anything. So, and as far as obviously getting up to Maryland to bowl a tournament, it's I live in Florida. It's a little ways to Maryland, so if everything worked out right, I would do that. So, are you not bowling on Wednesday night summer league? Missed the live stream, Terry. I am not. These are all questions that were from hours ago that I had people ask about. I am not bowling league because I'm not bowling right now. I've got another 5 months of recuperation from my shoulder surgery. Dennis Bush, how do you feel about the PBA retroactively awarding you a PBA title for the Lehigh Lanes Open, officially making you the first person to ever win a PBA title on string pins? Congratulations, my friend. Well, Dennis is one of the co-owners of the bowling center at Lee Highlands, and I'm I've never officially been told that. I've heard that, but I haven't been officially contacted from the PBA regarding that. But I heard they might do that, and I was surprised they didn't do it before the tournament started. So, is there a secret of picking up the 10 pin? I'm averaging about 30% on picking it up. I need help. Sean, basically, you want to throw the ball a little bit straighter, your 10 pins, um, but basically practice. Figure out a good place to stand and a good place to target. The straighter you throw it, the less you have to worry about what the lanes are doing. So for me, that's that. Most of my spares, I like to go fairly straight at. There are some that I hook at, but most of them I go nice and straight at. And basically, I bowl lots of different lane conditions, and I don't have to worry about what kind of adjustments I need to make on, whether I'm standing here looking there on this pattern or that pattern or that pattern. If you throw it nice and straight, the ball goes straight. Doesn't matter. I'm actually confused at these guys who get a ball that goes straight and then they sand it because they want the ball to pick up. I'm like, that makes no sense. You want a ball to go straight as possible, but people do odd things at times. But basically, just practice. What I would do is for 2 games, I just shoot at the 10 pin. Now, if you're shooting at a 10 pin on a full rack, you don't want to pick the 10 pin off. You still make it, but that's on the, you only have like a couple of inches over there if you're picking the 10 pin off. So basically, you want to hit the 6 and the 10 at the same time. Same thing. If you touch the 3 pin, you could probably still make the 10 pin, but again, that's kind of on the other side of the 10 pin that you really don't want to be hitting consistently. You want to have room for error. So you basically want to hit the ball, hit the 6 and the 10 the same time. Same thing on a 7 pin. You want to hit the 4 and the 7 if you're picking it off on a full rack. But I would do that for a couple games. Just shoot at the 10 pin. Don't worry about your score, and kind of get used to just throwing the ball over there and learning how to throw the ball straighter. For me, what I do is I'll suggest people try to throw a backup ball. They don't have to throw a backup ball, but try to take the rotation off of it. Most people don't realize how much they hook the ball with their spares. They go, "Oh, I'm using a spare ball." And I'm like, "Well, okay, get on a lane that has no oil and see what happens." So um, it's interesting how people find out how much they're hooking the ball, even on a plastic ball. Plastic ball will hook even on on lanes that hook a lot. Are you bowling any fall leagues in your area, and how many? I'm doing 3 this year. Except summer league, I'm in 4 leagues. I'm not sure if I'm going to be bowling any leagues because I've got another 5 months of no bowling, so that kind of takes me through the fall. So I don't mind bowling. I have fun bowling the leagues, but this year I might only just bowl a half the season or whatever. Say, Ken Sultan from Canton, Ohio. Would you say the last ABC Professional Tour telecast in 1997, the St. Louis Classic, was your most memorable triumph over hometown favorite whoever? It was definitely very memorable. It was very emotional. It was kind of tough for a lot of PBA players, because ABC was such a big part of bowling, and that we all knew that unfortunately revenues were going to come down and sponsors probably were going to come down, and that was a very frustrating, part of my career at that time. And I knew that I needed to take advantage of whatever was going on at that time. Fortunately, I was bowling really well, and it was beating Pete. He's a great player, and it was just fortunately for me, I managed to win the matches we bowled for titles. So, all right, that I got through all those previous questions. So, all right. What else we got? All right. Hope your recovery is going well. Did you have a favorite guy to bowl against? I like to bowl against guys that don't beat me. I mean, you want to bowl against guys that have good competition, and all the guys out on PBA Tour, even the guys you never heard of, are very good bowlers, and it's fun to compete against those guys. It's just having good competition. I like to win, but you can't win every time. There's just so much good competition, and I knew that when I first started bowling on the tour. I came up the ranks. It wasn't like I was number one right out of the box. It took me a little while to get to that top level, and I knew even when I got to that top level that I wasn't guaranteed to win tournaments. I knew I had a better chance than most, but the competition was so good. I knew I wasn't going to win every single week. And put my mic on and probably not even going on. That's pretty sad. Well, I hope nobody was saying anything about they couldn't hear anything, so I don't know. Now it's flashing at me. I don't think that's a good sign. Darn it. Oh, there we go. Didn't have it anywhere. Oh, I think what it was I didn't have my adapter all the way in, so even though I hadn't had the microphone on, it was still had the microphone working. So now I got my mic on here, this little clip-on thing. So, so Zach says, "Hi Walter, are you still going to Utah? You ever pitch a tournament in Michigan?" I'm not going to go to Utah. I'm not pitching horseshoes for the next month or so. The doctor said no pitching horseshoes even left-handed for 2 months. I have pitched in Michigan. I've pitched a couple times. I pitched in Jackson at the indoor courts. God, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. And I pitched in, I want to say Berkeley in a tournament. That was, again, 15 years ago, maybe 10, 15, I don't know. And then I practiced in Jackson the last few years when I was there, when they had the tournament in Jackson. They got some really nice courts there. And for some reason, when I practiced there the last couple of years, I've actually practiced really well there. So I don't know what it is about that area or whatever. And so actually last year I hadn't signed up for the World Tournament, and at the tournament in Jackson last year at the PGA 50 World Series, I just missed the cut for the top 18. I think I was like less than 10 pins out. I think 5 pins or something like that. So it turned out that now, if I really wanted to, I could pitch the World Horseshoe Tournament. And I was actually pitching really well when I was pitching in Jackson. I said, well, let me go ahead and go to the World Tournament. So I ended up doing that. And unfortunately, I didn't pitch as well at the World Tournament as I was in practice, which is kind of normal, unfortunately. But yeah, I pitched there. So let's see. Okay, saw some questions here, but they went away. Looks like your arm is in a sling, and what for? Well, this is 4 weeks ago today. I had shoulder surgery. Unfortunately, had some tears and stuff, and apparently it was a lot worse than even my doctor thought. And he's like, no bowling for 6 months, and I didn't want me pitching horseshoes left-handed for 2 months. Change balls, ha ha ha. Okay, Lynn. I'm not sure what that's for, but okay. Did you like the PWBA show in Green Bay? Yeah, it was exciting. It was nice to see. You know, it's good to see stuff like that. On TV, did you ever fear a particular opponent, or did someone make you more nervous than normal? Well, whenever I bowl on TV, I was always nervous. But when you're bowling the name players, it's a tiny bit more, you know. But I won my share of matches and I lost my share of matches, you know. So there was no guys that I was necessarily scared of. You know, nowadays I'm not that good. If I were to bowl on TV, which I'm not good enough to get on TV on the regular tour, even on the senior tour, it's like, you know, these guys on the senior tour, they're better than I am. I'm not as good as I used to be. So it's, you know, you've got your work cut out for you. So, miss seeing you out on tour, but I'm glad to hear you had a successful surgery. Thank you. Hey Walter, I hope you are getting better. I was wondering if you were thinking about going to the 50-60 doubles in Kingsport, Tennessee next month. No, I had surgery 4 weeks ago. My doctor said no bowling for 6 months, so I won't be at the double tournament next month. And I actually let my doubles partner from the last couple of years, Gary Faulkner, know that, so he understands, obviously. So And then I had, do you have a favorite guy to bowl against? I like bowling against all the guys. Obviously, the guys that take it easy on me, I kind of like appreciate a little bit more. And thanks for the recommendation on any given Saturday afternoon. It was hilarious. Yes, I I was, we were visiting with Billy Olikowski, who works for Brunswick, and a couple other guys from Brunswick came over, and they were talking about this documentary movie, mockumentary movie, and I asked my wife, I said, "Does he have a good sense of humor?" And she goes, "Yeah, he's a pretty good sense of humor." So they put it on, and I'm like, "Oh, this is hilarious. We got to watch the whole thing." So it's like 25 minutes long, and yeah, I thought it was hilarious. I really enjoyed it. It, and for me, knowing more stuff that goes on, they've had two other documentary movies. One was in the 90s, and it's called Pin Gods, and the other one is League of Ordinary Gentlemen, which more people are more familiar with because that was in the 2003 season or whatever like that. It came out about 2005. And this mockumentary, Any Given Saturday Afternoon, is kind of based on that, and you get a lot more appreciation for some of the jokes in the movie if you watch the original documentary movie, which is like an hour and 40 minutes long, and it also gives you some good insight into what kind of what goes on in the tour. It's not just it doesn't show everything, but it kind of goes over a little bit of stuff, and it was a different time back then, 20 something years ago, and we had just the PBA had just been bought out by some guys who used to work for Microsoft and were putting their own money into it and trying to make it better. And fortunately for me, I was able to take advantage of some of the money they put into it. Unfortunately, it just wasn't. It just didn't turn out as good as it could have been. But PBA is still chugging along. It's a different environment now than what it used to be. That years ago, like somebody mentioned the 1997 event on ABC. That you know back then, when back in the 70s, there was basically three channels on Saturday afternoon, and bowling was on Saturday afternoon, and from January to April, and the ratings were very good. Those guys had more viewers than I did, and I made more TV shows than anybody. And but those guys were getting 10 to 12 million people watching every weekend. Back and later on when I got on TV, it was a couple million people, and then later on it was like a million people. And now if they get half a million people, that's good. So the problem is the market is so saturated with so much stuff, and now because it's not on every single week at a certain time, it's hard for people to follow that. So, but the true bowling fans, they search it out and find it, and they can find it. So it's a different market and different niche and everything like that. But I'm sure there will always be some sort of professional sports on bowling sports on TV. But I don't know that it's ever going to be like some of the other major sports. But who knows? If they get the right things going on, you never know. Do you know how many single pin spares you've missed on the show during your career? I'm guessing under 10 for your total career training. I really couldn't tell you. I do know that one tournament I did miss 2 10 pins and one on a title match. Lost the game by 20 pins, so that was kind of sad. Other than that, I don't know. I've missed a few here and there, but I really couldn't tell you. I don't have those stats. What leagues will you be bowling in this coming fall? I enjoy watching videos. Well, I probably won't be bowling this fall. I had shoulder surgery. I've got this sling I'm in right now. It was 4 weeks ago. The doctor told me no bowling for 6 months, so that takes me to December. So I probably won't be bowling any fall leagues. Whether I join a league in mid-season, I don't know. We'll see what goes on. I might sub or whatever in leagues after that. I don't know. I have to see how everything goes, and hopefully my shoulder heals up really nice and properly, and I can bowl lots. So, let's see. Did you or do you have any superstitions? Not really. I got a degree in physics. I'm really, I hear people talk about, lucky socks, lucky shirt, lucky this, lucky that. I'm like, well, okay. If that was the case, you would always win. If that wasn't the case, you would always lose. So I just don't buy that. And things happen. I have people said, "Oh, you don't bowl well when I come watch you." I said, "Well, I don't win every week. I've got a lot of titles, but I've got a lot more non-titles. So I've had people say, "Oh, I'm bad luck for you," but I'm like, no, that's not the case. It's just that's the way things are sometimes. Anything new you're interested in throwing once you're back? Well, by the time I'm able to bowl, I'm sure they come out with about 15 bowling balls since then. So I'm sure I'll get some of the latest, greatest stuff, and I'll have to drill those up, and hopefully they will be to my liking, and my bowling arm swing will not have deteriorated too bad. Let's see. Let's go back over here. When can you get back to tossing shoes? So the doctor suggested, even though this is on my right shoulder, he suggested me not even teaching horseshoes left-handed for 2 months. So due to that, I dropped out of the World Horseshoe Tournament, which actually starts this next Monday. So it would have been playing next. I would have been playing next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then the finals would have been the following Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I was looking forward to pitching. I had a couple of good days of pitching, this season, but had a bunch of bad ones. But I'm always more of an optimist than a pessimist, I guess. And I keep thinking, I can do a little better. I have a, um, I don't know. I also enjoy competing. Unfortunately, when I found out, I'm like, well, I guess that's not going to happen. So, what is your favorite ball of all time? I would have to go with the Crush R from Ebonite back in 1993, and I think part of it has both to do with I won like 7 tournaments that year, but I also won 2 tournaments that season. I know that were not used with that ball because I used a Crush one time. I won that. I won the tournament in Portland, and I won the tournament down in South Florida at where was it? It was down there south of Miami. Unfortunately, it was a year after the bad hurricane went through, and I actually used a plastic ball, and nobody else was using a plastic ball, and I'm like, I bowled great, led the tournament, and I used it on TV and won the tournament. Pick any dream team of the top 5 bowlers you'd like to have. Well, these days, I mean, if you're talking career all time, I don't know. You probably could go somebody like Don Carter and Earl Anthony, Mark Roth, myself, and Jason Belmonte. Of course, you also want to add E.J. Tackett and Pete Weber. So, but those are definitely some of the top full-time great players. Let's see. Have you kept any old balls that you won tournaments with? I kept them, but I don't keep them and say, oh, this ball I won that tournament with, and I put it in a trophy case. I don't do that. I keep them and I use them. So I really couldn't even tell you. And then after a while, I get rid of them because I don't really pay attention to I won this tournament with this ball. I won this tournament with this ball. That's not the way I am. So. Johnny Petraglia. I forgot about Mark Roth. Yeah, and I didn't include Dick Weber, who, was also one of the greatest of all time. Let's see. Do you plan on bowling PBA 50 Tour next year? I do. Hopefully my shoulder gets rehabilitated really well, and I have no problem bowling next year. Anything new you're interested in throwing once you're back? Well, we'll find out when they come out. But like I said, there's going to be so many new bowling balls between now and then. Did you ever bowl duck pins or candle pins? I have bowled duck pins and I have bowled candle pins. Bowling 10 pins is frustrating enough. I can't understand why somebody wouldn't bowl those sports because you can throw really good shots and get like 3 or something like that. It's ridiculous. Scores are way lower. So here's what it is. And I was, coming from a bowling background where you like to hook the ball. So I was trying to hook this little tiny ball, and that's not the idea. The idea is just throw it as hard as you can at the head pin or whatever's standing in front. And it's definitely a different game. And there's a game up in Canada called 5-pin, and I've never done that, but I've heard about it. And there's only 5 pins on the deck, and it's just as wide as a normal 10-pin lane. I think the pins are only 12 inches high instead of 15 inches high, and I think the balls are about the size of a duck pin ball, maybe a touch bigger, but they're not very big. Um, and so you can actually probably go between the pins. I guess I'm guessing because I've never really done it, but they're spread out. You know, you got one in the head pin spot, one in the 7-pin spot, one in the 10-pin spot, and then there's one between the head pin and the 7-pin, and one between the head pin and the 10-pin. And I think it's 5 points for the one in front, 3 for the next two, and 2 for the last two. That adds up to 15 if you get a strike, and I guess a perfect game is 450 because they score the same way. 15 plus the next two balls. And my understanding is nobody's ever done that, but that's a while ago. By now, maybe somebody's done it. I don't know. There was a really, really, really good horseshoe player from Canada, Elmer Hole. He was 6-time men's world champion back in the 60s and 70s. And my understanding, he was a very, very good 5-pin bowler, which makes sense. I'm not the only horseshoe player who's a good bowler. I'm the only one who's been super successful on the PGA Tour, but there have been quite a few other successful horseshoe pitchers that were really good bowlers. Let's see. Just getting here. No, you said you had arm surgery. Was injury caused from long-term bowling horseshoes? Bruce, I would guess that's the case. 45 years of bowling competitively and playing horseshoes, 55 years. I would underhand arm swing to me is not as taxing on the body, but I guess over the years it finally did its number on me. Yeah. So, but it was shoulder surgery, so rotator cuff, I guess, is kind of the term they use. But ligaments, and had shaved down some stuff and everything. So, what are your thoughts? Or what do you think of the Crown Victory bowling ball? I liked it. It was a ball that I was using a fair amount. I like the being on the Brunswick staff. I try to use the Brunswick stuff first, but when I didn't use theirs, I'd probably go back to you'd probably use hammer stuff next most. But the Vaporize and the Mesmerize are balls that I really liked from last year. I was using them a lot this year, and then the Crown Victory was probably the next ball I was using a lot. What are your thoughts on string pins? Well, the string pins are okay. I would like them to be a little better if that's possible. I think they could be. I wouldn't mind giving my input to the people who work on those designs, but so far nobody's asked me. But I think that's going to be the case. That in 15 years, you're not going to see. There's probably not going to be very many standing machines for having pins stand up. They're going to use the string pin method because it's just a lot simpler, a lot more economical. But the economics of it's just a big part of it. So that if you don't mind paying a lot more to bowl, then yeah, you could probably use the free standing pins. But the average person doesn't really care about that. They just like to throw the ball down there and have some fun and drink a beer, have the pizza or whatever. It's those 3 white 5% bowlers that are really picky about lane conditions and this and that. All that stuff. Balls are 2.7 grams. I think you mean kilograms, but I'm guessing. How long can you bowl again? Doctor said 6 months, so I got another 5 months. I bowled for a number of years. 20. Would you say there's more strain physically bowling one-handed or two? I would say bowling two-handed is probably a little bit more physical, but I'm not as physical bowling one-handed as some of these guys. You watch, most of these guys that bowl on tour, these young guys, they are way more physical than I ever thought about being. So there's, that part of it. And, but the two-handed to me is similar to that. Now, saying exactly is one more than the other, I really can't say. I would say that the two-handed method probably takes a lot less strain off your wrist, and that I can say for myself, because if I were to try to bowl one-handed and try to bowl without just bowl one-handed without my thumb in the ball, kind of like Tom Doherty does, I wouldn't be able to throw too many shots that way. My wrist would say, yeah, you're not going to do that anymore, and so my wrist doesn't like being in that strong cup position. Two-handed though, I can do that. It gives me that extra support that I can do that. So now then the other part of that is the younger, and I don't throw the ball two-handed like the young guys do either. I'm 3 miles an hour slower than they are. My rev rate's not as high, so they do it a lot more physically demanding than I do. Now, me compared one-handed to two-handed, for me personally, I would say two-handed is a touch more physical, but I haven't worked at it. I haven't tried to bowl. I've never bowled a PDA tournament from start to finish, two-handed. I have bowled a couple tournaments where I bowled a lot of games two-handed, but I haven't bowled, a complete tournament two-handed. I've bowled a couple of local tournaments, just for fun, bowling two-handed. So let's see, what else we got? You'll be ready for the senior tour in 2026. Hopefully. What is your secret to your mental game? That's a good question. I think a lot of it has to do with I've got a degree in physics, minor in mathematics, so I'm a numbers guy. And when I played horseshoes and when I was young, I was really, really, really good. And basically, it was for me to lose a game or a tournament, my opponent had to pitch really well and I had to pitch bad. If I pitched my game, there was not too many guys that were going to beat me. They'd have to have an exceptional game to beat me. Unfortunately, over the years, those few times that happened where I pitched bad and my opponents pitched good started getting in my head a little bit. The odd thing is in bowling, that never really bothered me. But the difference is in bowling, I knew that even when I was at the top of my game, I wasn't a guaranteed winner. I knew that, you can throw a perfect shot and not get a strike. You can throw a bad shot and get a strike, or your opponent can. Seems like that happens more often. But for me, it was more about statistics. The best way for me to get a strike was to hit the pocket. So basically, my theory was hit the pocket, hit the pocket, hit the pocket. Now, the younger players today, it's more about hitting the pocket in a certain way. In fact, they'll even, they'll change. If they leave a ring in 10, they might change whatever they're doing. My theory is a ring in 10 is actually a pretty good shot. You just happen to hit just that wrong spot. If you're a hair higher, hair lighter, you're going to get a strike. So if you're that good that you can leave a ring in 10 every single shot, make an adjustment. If you're, most people aren't that good. Most people are going to be a fraction off one way or the other. So to me, that was more, hit the pocket, hit the pocket, hit the pocket. So it's more about, the long-term goal and just keep grinding away. Had to drop down in ball weight. Thoughts on throwing 13-pound reactive and what can I do to keep scoring good? Well, unfortunately, that as we get older, you got to do stuff like that. You may not be as competitive as you used to be, but trying to keep that ball speed up. For me, when I do a lot of my clinics, the one thing I teach is early timing, getting the ball into the swing early. The earlier the ball gets in the swing, the faster your feet got to move, the faster your feet go. It's actually going to create a little higher backswing, and the faster feet's going to create more ball speed. So learning how to do that and just do it enough. At first, you might lose a little bit of your accuracy, but you do it long enough, your accuracy is going to come back, and you should have a little bit more power. So, let's see, what else have I got? Am I still throwing 16 pounds? I haven't thrown 16 pounds in, I don't know. Well, I did throw a couple of 16. I did drill a couple of 16-pound balls in the last 20 years, but that was only a couple of times, and it really didn't see a big difference. So I started using 15 pounds in a late, probably about 97, 98. I can't even tell you the exact year. I just remember I went to Japan. We set a tournament, the Japan Cup. The top 16 players would be invited to go over there and bowl in tournaments and maybe an exhibition or two or whatever. And I always enjoyed bowling over there. And I thought, well, because it's expensive, getting stuff over there. And I said, well, I'll take my bowling balls. I'll take 5 or 6 or bowling balls, or whatever it was I took with me. And, when I get there, I'll just drill up a plastic ball. Well, they didn't have any 16-pound plastic balls. I was a little surprised, but I'm like, okay. So I drilled a 15-pound ball. I'm like, this actually feels kind of good. So when I got home, I actually drilled. Oh, here we go. I actually drilled a couple 15-pound balls for strikes, and I liked it. I was player of the year a couple of years, 2 or 3 times on the regular tour using the 15-pound ball. So, and I don't hook the ball an excessive amount. So, I didn't really see the need to use 16 pounds. In fact, I don't even see the need for some of these guys on tour because they hook up way more than I do. They get the ball to hook, angle into the pocket. And the reason why guys were using 16-pound balls way back in the old days, from the 50s and 60s, because they hooked the ball like this much. So they needed that extra weight to drive through the pins. Now the guys are hooking it this much. So it's such a difference that when you have the angle, you don't need as much weight in the ball to drive through the pins. Let's see. I would see also two hands more physical. They're using mostly 15 pounds. I think most guys use 15 on tour, but I honestly don't know. But it's my understanding. Um, Well, and like I said, it's more in the 60s and 70s. And I think the 70s and even 80s, the 16 pounds was kind of a carryover. But, once the urethane balls, especially the reactor balls in the 90s when that came into play, that was a totally different thing. How is your horseshoe toss going? Are you still doing that? I haven't played in over a month. I had shoulder surgery a month ago, and doctor said no pitching horseshoes left-handed. His 14-pound ball lose too much hitting power? I guess not. Tom Doherty uses 14 pounds. He has plenty of hitting power. He also hooks a lot. What do you think of the PWBA Anniversary TV Finals? Could you see the tour going back to arena finals? Well, the problem with arena finals is, they're expensive to do. So, and that happened to be a special venue where they knew they were going to have a huge audience, with the junior gold going on that started right after that. So it was a good combination of having a tournament and then having a captive audience, basically knowing that there'd be all these kids that would be there. Not to mention having kids on TV as an audience is even better, just because it's a um, demographic kind of thing. So, all right, let's see. Where are we at? Is there anyone you enjoy watching? Okay, get back to the other side here. There. Is there anyone you enjoyed watching bowl during your career? Well, when I first started on tour, I really enjoyed watching Earl Anthony, Mark Roth, and Marshall Holman. They were the top three bowlers when I first went on a tour, and I really enjoyed watching them. When I didn't make match play, which at the beginning was more often than not, unfortunately, and I'd sit in the stands and watch match play, and I'd watch these guys. Yeah, it was very enjoyable. I wanted to watch them, and nowadays I love watching the guys on tour. I mean, I can't do what they do, and they are very, very, very good. I don't think they get near enough appreciation for how good they are. These guys are just exceptional. Um, let's see, Texas 9-pin, you'll love it, guaranteed. Uh, don't know what that is, so I don't know. Hey, Zeno, fancy meeting you here. Let's see, living the dream. Okay. On a really challenging sport shot where the lanes are extremely tight, very little miss room, do you think that you at your peak, say 30 years ago, would have matched up pretty well against a Belmonte? Yeah, I mean, 30 years ago, I'd have definitely matched up better against Belmonte than 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I was at the end of my career. I was still, like I was player of the year when I was 50, somehow. And I think Jason was just coming on. He'd just been on tour for a couple of years, but he was already starting to make his presence known pretty well. Yeah, I was way more accurate back then. So yeah, I think they need to change the center of gravity in string pins to make them react closer to free fall pins. I don't think the center of gravity is the issue. I think there's some other issues there. I think part of it has to do with the way the string mechanism works. Um, and I could be wrong, but I think the what it is the machinery detects when the string is tugged on, so the pin's already moving, and that little tiny bit of resistance slows the pin action down. And that's my personal opinion. I may be Maybe totally incorrect on that, but to me, it's like it needs to let go of the string before the pin moves. Otherwise, there's going to be resistance. Even though it happens almost instantaneous, it's not quick enough. Letting something let go of it after it detects it, it's just going to be slower. It just is. So, but that's my opinion about that. The other thing is I think maybe if they use plastic pins. Now, I don't know if you've been watching the World Series of Bowling this week in Jackson, Michigan. They're actually using plastic pins, and the pins they fly a little bit different. Years ago, a lot of pros didn't like the twister pins because the pin action was different. The pin action in string pins is different. So a lot of people just don't like different things. Doesn't mean it's worse. It's just different. The better players are still the better players. If you've been watching the tournament this week, you got all the top players that are on, making the TV finals and competing for the titles and stuff. But you see a lot more 9 pins and 4 9s and 7 9s and stuff like that you don't see as often. You see them, but just not as often as you do as with these pins. So it's maybe a combination of something like that. But my understanding is the way the machinery lets go of the string pins. There's also a little thing that stands on top of it, and I have no idea if that's even necessary. They do drill a hole in the top of the pin, so it does lower the center of gravity a little bit. But I think that would be a very simple fix. You just make a bigger hole in the bottom. Maybe you make the hole a little bit less because they actually drill a hole through the top and a hole in the side, and then they put a string down there, and then they tie the string and kind of tug and fill that one hole back up, like plug it up or whatever. But it's not a super complicated system. It's just the machinery and stuff, the way that it operates and the way it lets go of the string. Because you can't obviously let go of the string completely because there'd be strings all over the place, and that wouldn't be very good. And I think also the other part is the string is a little bit thinner. I would think that would help. But again, if it was too thin, it would break a lot more, and you don't want that either. So there's lots of pros and cons about the string pins and stuff. Let's see. Where did you most enjoy to bowl in your prime, Asia or Europe? Well, I didn't get a chance to bowl very much in Europe. I really enjoyed bowling in Japan. Got to go to Korea a couple times, and I went to a couple other countries, but those were kind of like one-offs. So I didn't mind. I like to travel. I don't mind to travel, if that makes any sense. Some people don't like to travel at all, and that's why some guys didn't bowl on tour. I didn't mind the travel. I've driven across the country, I don't know, 80 times. So it's not a big deal to me. Of course, nowadays I'm a little older. My body doesn't like being in a car for that long. But when I do travel across the country, like when I drive from Florida to Las Vegas, which I recently did, or actually it was actually Virginia to Las Vegas. I did it in like 3 days. It's just the way I do it. When I'm going to get somewhere, I want to get there. So I don't like to drive all night, but I'll drive, you know, I'll drive 13, 15 hours in a day. It used to be a lot easier when I was younger. Let's see. Do you think you'll ever bowl in New York again? Probably. There's no reason for me not to. The problem is I live in Florida, so to bowl a small tournament in New York doesn't make a lot of sense. But if they had national tournaments up there, I would definitely bowl. Or if I happen to have a schedule where I was bowling some events or whatever, do some, and it might be more that I do more, appearances than bowling tournaments. So we'll see what happens. Let's see. I think all great bowlers are mathematicians. Even Carmen Salvino stated that. Um, I, Back in the old days, before computers, all the bowlers learned to add really well because that was how you kept score. Nowadays, a lot of younger players have trouble adding up the scores because they're used to having the computer do it for them. So it's a different thing. But I think a lot of I think people are good at math anyway, and I think just some people chose not to be, or just whatever kind of turn them off to it. But it's you know I don't think it's necessary to be that analytical in that regard. But for me, I don't know exactly what it was that drew me to bowling, the angles and the geometry and the math. I don't know, but I definitely enjoyed it, and I think all kids like knocking stuff down. So there's that. It definitely helps to understand physics. Well, I have a degree in physics, but I think for me, I mean, physics isn't everything, but nobody's going to know the exact physical equations, that you do this, and it's going to give you a strike because the variables are always changing and you can't see what the variables are. And despite my having a degree in physics, I am really not as big into the dynamics of bowling balls as everybody else is. For me, it's more about the person throwing the ball. And I think one of um, my contemporaries, Pete Weber, basically the same philosophy. He's like, let me drill the ball and let me throw it. If I like it, I'll throw it again. That's kind of where I am. I do kind of like to see, I like to see more hook in the ball because I don't hook the ball a lot, So when I get my balls drilled, I said, get the ball to hook on the back end if you can, because I can make it go straighter normally, you know. But there are conditions every once in a while that I'm like, oh man, I'm having trouble keeping the ball go straight, and I'm like, man, I shouldn't have done that, you know. Let's see, cores and cover stocks have gotten, where'd that go? So strong that you don't really need 15 pounds anymore. Okay, if you say so. A heavier ball still has more force, but if you can't roll it properly, it doesn't much matter. That's the same with everything. You need to be accurate. Power is one thing, accuracy is another thing. Power and accuracy is better, and that's what the guys on tour have. They have power and they have accuracy. It's a combination of that makes those guys so good. What about gold pins used from 98 to 2000? Okay, so those gold pins were actually a few ounces heavier. They were supposed to be, quote, tougher to knock down. They actually probably fell down easier than the other pins. And I don't know exactly why. Maybe it was the center of gravity. I couldn't tell you. But honestly, those pins actually fell down easier. I didn't notice that they were tougher to knock down. If anything, I thought they were maybe even a touch easier to knock down. We just did. They just didn't have we only had them on TV. That was the only time because they didn't. Bowling centers didn't have, 40 lanes of, that's a lot of bowling pins. So, and I think they cost more. So why would you do that? And I think the heavier pins also can actually cause issues with the machinery. So you got to be careful with stuff like that. Again, then that's the problem today with the machines, and why they're going to string pins because the cost of stuff like that. What about the talk of restricting urethane balls? I think that's ridiculous. Um, I just don't understand that at all. You're going to eliminate plastic balls. You're going to eliminate rubber balls. I just don't understand that. I think you have a few guys who don't like the look of urethane ball, and I'm like, well, good. Don't use the urethane, but you can't complain about somebody else using it. That to me is just ridiculous. But that's. I just don't understand that at all. And the other funny thing is you could go to the tournaments when the guys are using them, they sand the crap out of them, and it's like you're trying to get a ball that goes straighter, but you're trying to get it to hook more. I don't understand that. So but I know there's a fine line about that. Part of it has to do with playing the lane condition, playing the first part of the lane instead of the back part of the lane. And then some of these guys will hook a urethane ball. So I think the difference is the urethane ball carries the oil down a little bit faster. It kind of, eats up the oil a bit on the front part of the lane. Typically, though, it's going to make the lane pattern better. If you happen to be a guy who hooks the ball more, you're going to like that more. The guys who are going to go straighter are going to like it less. So if I'm bowling with Jason Domani and Don Barrett and a bunch of other guys, and they're all using urethane, they're all hooking it more than I am, and I'm bowling one-handed, and my ball's just not. They're going to get the oil to carry down, and I can't get around the carry down. Where they can get around the carry down, it hold. And if I use urethane, I'm going to create the lane. I'm going to make the lane better for myself later on. So it's. I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding about that and how lanes break down. But I just think it's. I see these tournaments all the time where you can't use urethane, and I'm like, reactive balls are urethane, so you're going to ban those too. I just don't agree with it, don't understand it. I had a set of those gold pins back in the day. They were about 4 pounds heavier per box and 10 than the flyer pins most houses use. Like I said, there are a few ounces. I think there were 4 or 5 ounces per pin. So, that adds up a little bit. I wouldn't think it'd be 4 pounds per box, but might have been. I went to the Empire State Open in 2000, 2001 at Bowlers Club, but missed the one in 2002. Do you remember what happened with the flash? Um, so that wasn't there. That was actually, I want to say the tournament was in Long Island, and I want to say the TV show was in Connecticut or something like that. It was a completely different venue, and what it was an arena. So we had portable lanes. So they're 2.5, 3 feet high, um, and so you got probably 4 lanes. So we're bowling on like the right 2 lanes. So it'd be like lanes 3 and 4, and to the right it's a drop. 2.5, 3 feet or whatever. So they would put people right down the lane. So they're just to the right. I mean, they're right there, right in front. And this particular event, they had a few people in wheelchairs, and right after that, then they had some other people. Well, I guess one of the guests, one of the parents of one of the people in the wheelchair or whatever came to the tournament and wanted to take a picture. Unfortunately, he didn't turn his flash off, and he caught the flash right in the middle, not right in the middle, right at the end of my approach. And it definitely caught my attention and distracted me, and I said some bad words. I wasn't happy with what happened. It just unfortunately that it happened, and I think unfortunately there's too many people who don't understand, that those kinds of things really shouldn't be done, but it happens, and it is what it is. Let's see. Walter, do you remember bowling with Mark Roth back in '83 on USA Network? Yeah, it was my second TV show. And I think I've bowled Mark Roth 3 times on TV, and he beat me all 3 times. In fact, I think he won his very last tournament against me up in Canada. I led the tournament, and he got up there and then beat me for the title. I mean, I vaguely remember it. I didn't bowl very great. I didn't bowl a great match against him, but yeah, it was my second. It was my second show. My first show, I had the opportunity to bowl a Earl Anthony, and I didn't win my second game. If I'd have won my second game, I'd actually bowled Earl Anthony for a title, but I didn't do that. Let's see. The whole getting rid of bowling balls thing is ridiculous. Okay. Let's see. I laugh about that because my Ebonite gyro would be a spare ball in today's lane, but it's still illegal. What do you mean it's still illegal? I'm not sure. What do you mean it's illegal? Now, it would be illegal on the PBA Tour, but it's not illegal in league or anything else. It's still a legal ball. It's just the PBA Tour says the bowling balls have to be, less than 2 years old or something like that, or, after 2022. I'm not sure what it is. I'm sure, since I don't bowl on tour anymore, it doesn't really bother me that much. But you can actually use an old ball for spares. You can't use it for strikes. Why? I don't know, and I think it's silly. I don't agree with it, but I'm not in charge. So, yeah, let's see what else we got here. Any recommendations for a good spare 14 bump ball? Any plastic ball would work. To me, you want to go as straight as possible. I see you guys use urethane, and the urethane hooks way more than a plastic ball. Go with a plastic ball. My favorite TV moment of yours when you made the Big Four on TV and when you had matches against Pete Weber. You're still amazing bowl. Thank you. Yeah, I picked up the Big Four on TV. I lost the match by 20 pins, so it really didn't matter. Didn't get anything bonus for it. They mention it all the time. It's kind of nice. I've only picked it up a few times, but I mean, it was a lucky shot. And fortunately, when I bowled Pete Weber on TV, I managed to beat him a lot. So. What is your greatest achievement in bowling? My personal opinion is being back-to-back bowler of the decades in the 90s and the 2000s. I think that's a pretty special achievement. Is it worth bowling the PBA 50 Tour these days? It seems the price is low compared to the cost of everything. If you're trying to make a living on the PBA 50 Tour, you better be really, really, really good. Yeah, the money's not huge. If you're wanting good competition, and that's pretty much most of these guys do. They love the competition, and they're just trying to have a good time out there. And some of these guys got a little more money than they need, so they don't mind spinning it and having fun and, you know, bowling for, you know, maybe trying to make some money or trying to make the cuts or whatever, a pride thing or whatever. It's everybody's a little different. For me, who always made money bowling, it's a little more challenging for me these days because this year I really actually lost money bowling in tournaments, which is a first for me. Um, you know, so everybody's a little different, you know. But you know, most of these guys that bowl on the senior tour, most of these guys aren't bowling. They're not trying to make a living. You got a few guys that are obviously trying to add money to their bank accounts, and everybody wants to win. Trust me, I'm not saying guys don't want to win because everybody does. Even the guy who finishes 130th, he wants to win too. But you know, a lot of those guys realize they're not as competitive, but they still like to bowl. So. See, Walter for president. Okay. Not sure president of what, but okay. Who was the first two-handed bowler on tour, Oscar or Belmo? Actually, it would be a gentleman from Texas. God, I'm trying to remember his name, but he bowled back in the 80s. He actually won 4 regional titles. God, I'm drawing a blank as his name. But yeah, he bowled a little bit on tour, but he wasn't successful, so you know, it wasn't a big deal. But that was back in the middle 80s that he did that. And my understanding is that a couple of the guys that bowled on tour and won titles actually bowled two-handed as junior bowlers, and then when they got older, they bowled one-handed with the thumb in the ball. I think Joe Berardi was one of them, and Brian Himmer was another one. So. Why is this doing this? Okay. Hope you're recovering. Great seeing you in Akron. Oh, thanks, yeah. Thanks, Mike. I got a blue Columbia 300 white dot. That was my grandpa's when he was active in bowling. How can I find out the weight of the ball, which I hope is 14 pounds? All you do is take it to a pro shop. They got scales, they'll measure it for you. Whether or not, it's the weight you want, that, isn't necessarily, just because you think you want 14 doesn't mean you need 14. You might want 15, you might want 13. I don't know. Bowling ball was made back in the 80s, still need condition. It's that ball is not going to hook very much. So unless you have a really high rev rate, that's probably not going to be a good strike ball. Might be a good spare ball. Did you ever bowl the hoinky? No. From Hong Kong, hi Sam. Want to tell you that your follow through is still the best I've ever seen this far. Any tips on dealing with a bad game on league night when spares are not happening? What do you mean spares aren't happening? First you want to get strikes, and you can't get strikes, you get your spares. I just go out there and try to do the best you can. Try to have fun. I get frustrated. Trust me. I have a lot more fun when I do well. That makes a lot of sense. I think we're all that way. But there are some people who can shrug it off a little bit better than others. And when I bowl league, I do it more for fun, as opposed to I want to beat everybody and beat everybody and beat everybody. I do want to beat everybody. Trust me. But I bowl league two-handed, and I do it basically to have more fun. I'm still semi-competitive two-handed, but I get beat all the time in the league bowling two-handed. So it is what it is. But I just enjoy the competition. Are you thinking about using the 14-pound ball? No. Hello from Lockport, New York. Hello. I've been there a few times. Used to pitch horseshoes there. There was a couple of really good lady horseshoe pitchers. One was from Gitsville and one was from Lockport. And okay. Hi, Susan. Let's see. Can't they produce a resin ball that can hook a lot less? They can. I actually have one. I have a, the track made the Axe, and it actually goes straight in the urethane ball. I was using it last year in league, and it hooks a little bit more than my plastic ball. It goes, that's amazing to me how straight it goes, but it's probably about like the original reactive balls back in the early 90s. You bowled with a lot of ball companies. Which one was your most successful for you? Um, I did pretty well with Ebonite. Um, and then the one year I won 7 tournaments, and they didn't want to raise my salary, and I said, okay, you're not going to raise my salary. I'm going to go on my own, do something else. And then I was on Brunswick. I did very well with them. I was player of the year 3 years in a row with Brunswick stuff, and um, then unfortunately they um, dropped. They took a big cut in their staff members, and I was one of them to save them a lot of money. And then I was with a few other companies over the time, and then Brunswick picked me up back up in I think 2012. So I've been with them since then. Let's see. Okay. A few more questions over here. All right. Let's see. When I picked up Big Four, was I surprised? Yes. All you got to do is look at my reaction. I think it's because the PBA had agreements with the manufacturers to promote their new equipment, but that's just a guess. That may be part of it, but I honestly couldn't tell you. I think part of it was they had some issues with some bowling balls that were getting soft, and they thought this would be a way to get around that. But it probably a combination of both. But that's a guess. I really don't know. How do you calm your mind when you're feeling tight or nervous in competition? Well, I've been doing it a long time, so the more you do it, the more you get comfortable with it. But there are certain times you get more anxious and nervous and stuff. So you're always dealing with that kind of stuff. If you're not getting nervous, then I don't know. I almost think something's wrong with you. That doesn't mean being nervous is bad. To me, being nervous is actually kind of good. It means something to you, but you just have to get yourself in the right mindset to say being nervous is not a bad thing. Being nervous is actually a good thing. So if you didn't care about it, you would never get in that position. So it's kind of a catch-22. So you just kind of go out there and say, this is why I'm here. This is why I want to do this. If you're going up for the 300 game, you never had one, or you had one or two, and it's like, oh man, I get so nervous. It's like, but that's the reason why you do this. You want to bowl the 300 game. You want to be in that position. And that's the mindset you need to be in. Say, okay, I can do this. And you've done it 11 times or 10 times before. If I could do this one or two more times, you get the 300 game. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. And if it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And don't put too much, emphasis on, oh, if you threw a bad shot. That happens at times. That's why you messed up all these other times you didn't throw 300s. Sometimes during a game you didn't throw a great shot, or the pins didn't cooperate. How is the shoulder doing? It's doing okay. It's going to still be another month before I can do stuff left-handed, and another 4 months after that before the doctor says I can actually start bowling. Probably start doing PT in a couple weeks. I'm speed dominant, and I really struggle on long oil patterns. Any advice on getting better at that, or do I just need to practice more? Well, the problem is when you have high ball speed, and your rev rate's pretty decent, but with the higher ball speed, you just want to get stuff that's got a lot more grit to it. I think that's a big part of it. The problem is when you start bowling on sport patterns, now all of a sudden you got to be a lot more precise anyway. So it doesn't really matter. You just need to be more precise, and I think that's the biggest key. A lot of people forget about whether it's a short pattern or a long pattern. You need to be a lot more precise when you start bowling on a sport pattern as opposed to a house pattern. And I think that's the biggest key: hitting the target, and hitting it. And the places to play on the lane are a lot more subtle. You don't have to play a certain part of the lane, as opposed to a house shot where it's a lot more, this is where you need to play. If you're not playing there, you got no chance. So it's kind of that thing. And I think just kind of working on the shot making is going to be a lot better for you in the long run. Let's see. Just wanted to say that both you and Ron Duke have been a huge inspiration to me, and finding this channel has been enjoyed. Thank you. Chuck Landy, yes, that's the guy. He was the first two-handed bowler. He bowled a tiny bit on the tour. I honestly don't remember too much bowling on tour, but I do know he bowled a little bit on tour. I'm sure he did both full time, but I know he was a decent bowler, and then he won like 4 regional titles or something like that. And that's a guess. I'm sure somebody knows that for sure. But that's my understanding. Did the PBA sponsored names like Odor Eaters, two other names like you had a patch on their shirt? I'm not sure what the question is. But yeah, the PBA had sponsors. Rest in peace, Steve Miller. Yeah, Chuck Landy. The NU is a resin ball. Right. Yes, it is. Yes, it's a lot like the bowling balls that they used to call repellents. I never knew they had a ball called the repellents. I missed that part. Thick cover stock to prevent absorption of oil. I think it does. It's not necessarily a thick cover stock. I think it has to do with the actual composition of the shell. It's a different amounts of additives get put in it. Um, so that's why some balls hook more than others. It's the different additives they put into these shells that make the ball hook more. Now, yeah, the thickness of the shell can make a difference, but I think the bigger part of it has to do with the actual chemical makeup of the shell itself. Um, I remember you and Steve Jarros back in '96, Johnny Petraglia, um, and your victory win. You're asking me if I remember? I do remember it. Um, I don't remember all of my tournament victories, which is kind of sad. I think if you like say, oh yeah, this and then, oh okay, yeah, I remember that. So I do remember that one a little bit more. It was one of the ones that was on an arena final. Steve Jarros, very good bowler. Let's see, what is your favorite PBA format? I like the old school. I like the games of qualifying, however many games, and then round robin match play with the pins, 30 pin bonus, and adding those pins up. Um, I just think that's a better format. Elimination format I dislike to no extent. I just don't like them. I've bowled in them. I've won tournaments doing it. I just don't like them. I don't think it's the best way to run a tournament. That's my opinion. Um, how do you keep yourself consistent with wildly different conditions for your shots? I personally struggle with releasing different balls the same way. I keep fudging my release with one of my balls. Unfortunately, it might be that I've noticed the last couple of years my I've been way too inconsistent, and it may be because I have, unfortunately or fortunately, a few different ways to throw the ball. Unfortunately, it's kind of like I was doing one and then doing another one, and I wasn't meaning to. Um, Being more consistent is definitely how you're going to be better. There's no doubt about it. But learning to do different things has also helped me in different times. Particle resin literally contains particles. Yeah, and I don't know that they do that a whole lot anymore. That was back in the late '90s, and then they may still do that a little bit, but that was a thing back then. To combat the amount of oil they were putting on the lanes, and they might still be doing that. I really don't know because I'm not in the testing facilities. I'm not there designing bowling balls and what the makeup is, but I know that was a big thing back in the late '90s. One hand, how to follow through aggressive and still hook with so much oil nowadays. Um, well, these guys today, they learn how to get that what they call a yo-yo release, where the wrist is semi-cupped or cupped right before release, and at the point of release, you totally uncup it. So you go, so basically a backup release or backup wrist release. So your wrist goes from strong cup position to this position. So you go, okay. So you go from this position to that position. So I'm sorry, everything's backwards on the computer, and this is my left hand. So, but basically going from that strong position to the weak position at the point of release, and that's what didn't make a whole lot of sense to me going to that weak position. But that's how you get that extra roll on the ball to get that extra hook, and that's where the guys get the. And I don't do that. My wrist is very solid all the way through the release, and I just lift with my fingers. I do some rotation with the wrist, but it's not. It's rotation around the ball. It's not. It's not the kick in the wrist where I get that extra rotation. And that's why I don't hook the ball as much. Let's see where are we at. And so follow through. I mean, I think everybody needs to have follow through. I don't think that makes a difference on anything. To me, follow through just kind of helps complete the swing. Is there a guy you bowled against that you felt could have or should have won more tournaments than they did? There's so many guys that had beautiful games that just you thought, wow, this guy should just do dominant. And then there's some guys you thought, oh, this guy's gonna be great, and he was, So, and then some guys you look at and you're like, well, this guy doesn't look that great, but I had a lot of people say that about me, and I happen to win a lot of tournaments. So. Bowled juniors in the '90s in Stockton, and my dad tried to teach me to bowl just like you. 43 and just started bowling league again at Pacific Bowl. Any good stories and memories from Pacific? Um, So I didn't really bowl league there. I practiced there. I was already on tour when I moved to Stockton. I was back in '85, fall of '85, and then I moved in '98. I had people come up years later and say, "Oh, I bowled league with you in the juniors in Stockton." I said, "No, you didn't. I never bowled juniors there. I didn't. I didn't grow up in Stockton. I grew up in Eureka, California. I bowled 1 year as a junior bowler when I was 11 in Eureka, California. But in Stockton, it was more. I basically just practiced mainly at Pacific Lanes, Pacific Avenue Lanes. Once in a while I'd go to West Lane, but mostly it was Pacific. It was a lot closer to where I lived. And the people there that own the bowling centers are very nice to me. Got to be good friends with them. So um, it was an enjoyable time there. So let's see. How was it bowling against Eugene McKeon? It was okay. Eugene does some things when he bowls that he probably shouldn't do, but we've all done things like that. Eugene's a great bowler. Happened to win a couple titles against me. Good for him. How fast did he actually throw? Well, Eugene, when he hooked the ball, he threw it nice and slow, but he could hook it. He had a pretty good rev rate, and when he threw it hard, he could throw it really hard. That was how he threw it straighter, and he learned how to do that. I think it was later on when he learned how to do that, and it became, something that he got to be known for. But he probably would rather be known for hooking the ball than throwing it straight and hard. But that's a guess. You have to ask him. Ask anyone who lives in the northern state if they like studded tires or blizzard. I don't know what the blizzard tire is, and you'll see why particle covers ticks aren't common. I guess that has to do with particles in a bowling ball, but not sure. I guess it's to get more underneath the ball to lift it harder. It's not necessarily underneath. Well, you kind of want to get underneath it, but it's to get the higher rev rates that what they call yo-yo release, where they kick the ball and they get extra rotation on a ball. It's a learned technique. It's not simple to teach. There are ways to do it, but it doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of work to learn how to do that, which I think is why a lot of people, quote, traditional bowlers don't like the two-handed style, because the two-handed style basically does it almost immediately. The difference is with the two-handed style, you need to learn to control it like anything else. But with the lane conditions, as easy as they are, your scores can be a lot higher sooner with the two-handed release than a one-handed release, just because the amount of hook on the ball takes advantage of the lane condition. The problem is because of that, a lot of the two-handed bowlers today I see sometimes they actually learn how to get behind the ball more, so they have more end-over-end roll because the ball hooks so much, and that's not really the best way to do it. It's more to learn how to throw the ball with a lot more speed. So that's what the better younger players do. They learn to throw the ball hard because they have a high rev rate. They have a high rev rate because they need to, and they throw it hard because they need to, because they have a high rev rate. So, I don't think it's possible to compete on modern lane conditions without speed and revs. On a house shot, doesn't really matter. Some of the other conditions, there's a reason why guys hook the ball, because it works. And the reason why it works, it has to do with the way lanes change. On a fresher pattern, typically going straighter is better. But after a couple games and the lanes are breaking down, typically it's better to hook the ball. But you got to control it. You can't just hook the ball. You just can't be wild with it like you would in a house shot. And that's that's the difference between bowling on a house shot and bowling on a sport pattern. So the players today have learned, how to hook the ball, and then they've learned how to control the hook. Is kind of how it works. Um, and I guess if you play golf, the golf analogy is learn how to hit the ball really hard, and then learn how to control it. That's kind of what bowling has become, and I have no problem with that. It's like I said, accuracy is one thing, power is another thing. Power and accuracy, that's a dangerous combination, and that's what the guys on tour have. So, how about you went up against Gilpin team at the 88 Showboat Invitational? Lanes were very challenging that day. Bowled a decent game. Gip outscored me. Let's see. Are the branded tire and their claim to fame is the technology that allows the tires to absorb water and grip icy roads better. It's super similar to how bowling ball covers hard food. Okay. Fortunately, I don't need those kind of tires. I live down in Florida. I do travel in the north once in a while, but that 290 bowl against Chris Barnes was awesome. I watched that video almost every day. Well, thank you. I was obviously fun. It was one of my better performances on TV, and I think that's my very last national title. Let's see. You bowled with many ball companies. How do you pick balls for Arsenal? Benchmark ball. How do you pick with so many options? That's a really good question. I'm on the Brunswick staff. They have 6 other brands under their staff. So I have the opportunity to use hundreds of bowling balls. Now because I'm on the Brunswick staff, I tend to like to use Brunswick stuff more. And I don't hook the ball a lot, so I like to see balls that hook more in the back end. So when I see those kinds of balls, I tend to like those a little bit more. And a lot of times I'll also add surface to those balls. So that's kind of what I do. And even on when we have short patterns, it's amazing. The oil carries down, and pretty soon I got to hook it as much as I can. And then on longer patterns, it's like I feel like, oh my God, I got to hook it so much, and that's why I learned how to bowl two-handed. And there's a lot of times that I'll go to the two-handed delivery the last few games of a block to take advantage of how the lanes are broken down. Like I talked about earlier, there's a reason why hooking the ball works, because it does work, because the way lanes break down and change. It does give an advantage to the guys that hook the ball more, but you got to be able to control it. Unfortunately, my two-handed game is not as accurate as it needs to be, but my one-handed game isn't as accurate as it needs to be either. So there's that. Favorite bowling alley food? I like a good quesadilla. I like a good hamburger. So I've been to a lot of different bowling centers, and I've been to some that had some excellent food, ribs and stuff like that. So holy animal patterns on tour are 1-to-1 ratio. That's not true. Since I don't have a huge rev rate, only around 380, I go straighter at the pocket. Think Norm Duke shot. Well, 380. If your rev rate's only 380, that's way higher than mine, and I believe that's much higher than Norm Duke, and that's higher than Pete Weber. But again, it has to do with accuracy. When you get a flatter pattern, you need to be more accurate. You can't just throw the ball anywhere. But the animal patterns are not 1-to-1. There might be 2-to-1, 2.5-to-1, something like that. But the amazing thing is even though they have a 2.5 to 3 times more oil in the middle than they do on the outside, they feel like they have lots of oil on the outside. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing how much oil is on the outside of a sport pattern. And I think part of it is because we're so used to the house shots that have very little oil on the outside. So your ball is used to seeing that hook, and now all of a sudden on a sport pattern you don't see that. So we think, oh my God, and they talk about OB, and there isn't OB. It's actually, there's less oil on the outside than there is in the middle, but it plays like it does. It plays like it has more oil. It's weird. I don't. There's other reasons for that, but okay. Still works equally as well as higher rev rates. Higher rev rates, like 380 is pretty decent rev rate. Now on tour, yeah, that's on the lower side, but that's still pretty good rev rate. What do you think of string pins? I've talked about that before. I'm okay with that. I'd like to see them a little bit better than they are. The competition level anyway. The the recreation level, that's a completely different game. You're going to see a lot of garbage there with that. But even on that, the better bowler is going to be the better bowler. So do you really miss golden pin lanes and imperial lanes? Well, I mean, I missed bowling out on tour back then. That was fun. I had a lot of good time. And it was fun bowling in Tucson because my mom at that time lived there, so it was fun bowling there. And I also bowled pretty well. Cheese sticks or steak and bake a quesadilla for the win. I don't mind cheese sticks, but I like steak. Or actually, I usually get chicken quesadilla. Actually, this last year they were actually doing a chicken Caesar salad, so I was doing that a lot. That was really good. Thanks for these videos. Really appreciate taking the time. Thank you. House shots usually don't have an out of bounds. Not really. No. Normally house shots, and the thing is technically they kind of do. Outside of like 5 or 4, there's sometimes like even just a little bit of hang out there, but you never get the ball that far right, so it's not a big deal. I'm about to close this up. I'm just going to answer a few more questions over here. Let's see. When you cleared to bowl practice again, any chance of visiting Citrus Lanes, aka Sportsman again in Inverness? Oh, they've been recently in. I don't know. I mean, it's a little further away from me, but anything's possible. What's the key to generating more speed? I've dropped down to 12 miles an hour. It was 15 to 16. Like I talked about, get the ball in the swing earlier, makes your feet go faster, maybe even get that backswing a little bit higher without even trying to. Get the ball in the swing earlier. And that's the biggest thing I see with most amateur bowlers. They don't get the ball in the swing as soon as in my opinion, as they should. Have you had difficulty switching from bowling on wood lanes in the 80s, 90s synthetic? You said, yeah, I had a horrible time. I just haven't been able to win a tournament the last 30 years. Oh, wait a minute. I'm kidding. Bowling's bowling. Yeah, lanes are a little different. The thing is, we go to wood lanes now. Unfortunately, the wood lanes are they're so old that they really need to be replaced or whatever. We had a tournament. I had a tournament back in March that we did bowl on wood lanes, and they had an outside shot, and I bowled pretty well on it, but the pattern played very odd on that, and I don't know because of house shot or because it was wood lanes or what, but it was very odd. You can actually watch. It was I'm thinking of a town, but it was a regional in Ohio, Galion, Ohio, I think it was, and I finished in third. Andy Reddick won, and Tom Doherty finished second. I finished third. It was one of my better tournaments of the year. Let's see. When releasing the bowling ball, should you follow through under the ball? I don't know how you follow through under the ball. Release the ball from inside out or start coming around the ball as you release the ball. Well, typically you want to have your arm swing as close to your leg, ankle as you can without hitting it. I used to do that. Now my hand is my ball's probably about 5 inches away from my ankle. So I'm kind of coming around the side of it. And it's hard changing stuff like that. It really is. So. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed it. And maybe do this in a few days again or sometime next week. All right. Bye.